The annual Beaumont Family Gala was in full swing at my brother Daniel's restored 1890s estate in Savannah, Georgia when I arrived, 30 minutes late on purpose, wearing a tailored charcoal pantsuit instead of the couture gowns my siblings favored. "Well, look who decided to join us," Daniel called out from the grand staircase, champagne flute in hand. "Camille, the eternal office clerk." A wave of polite, knowing laughter swept through the Beaumont elite: surgeons, venture capitalists, corporate attorneys, and tech founders. I was the failure of the family, the one who had supposedly settled for a modest role as an administrative assistant at Sterling Holdings. "Still answering phones for a living," my sister-in-law Paige smirked, her diamond necklace catching the chandelier light. "Something like that," I said, taking a sip of champagne. My phone buzzed. Text from my real executive assistant: "Forbes piece goes live in 10 minutes. Perfect." "Camille," my mother sighed from her corner near the fireplace. "When will you do something meaningful with your life? You're 32. Your brothers had built empires by then." I glanced around at my so-called achievers: Daniel, real estate mogul; my sister Isabel, cosmetic surgeon to celebrities; Matthew, tech CEO. All perfectly proud of themselves. "I'm comfortable where I am," I replied, glancing at my watch. "Comfortable?" Isabel scoffed. "You rent a one-bedroom and drive, what? A Honda?" Another buzz. New York Times headline cued. "Speaking of success," my father boomed, raising his glass. "Let's toast to Daniel's latest triumph, acquiring 10 luxury properties in downtown Savannah." Daniel grinned. "Prime locations. By next week, the deal's sealed. The Beaumont name will own the city's skyline." I hid my smile behind the rim of my glass. 3, 2, 1. The room filled with vibrating phones, notification pings, and murmurs. Daniel froze mid-test, staring at his screen. "What the?" Isabel's face went pale. My mother's hand clutched her pearls. Across the room, the Forbes and New York Times headlines glowed on every device. Sterling Holdings CEO revealed mystery billionaire controls Savannah's largest real estate portfolio, was known in both political office to be a remarkably leveraged and assassin. Beneath the headline was my corporate headshot, smiling back at them. This has to be a mistake," my father stammered, his voice catching in the grand dining room. "No mistake," I said evenly, setting down my champagne flute. "Sterling Holdings owns those luxury properties, has for the past 5 years, along with nearly every other Savannah, Charleston, and Atlanta." "But you're an assistant," Daniel said, his voice trembling. "Executive assistant," I corrected with a quiet laugh. "At least, that's what you all believed. In truth, I'm the founder and CEO. I started Sterling Holdings 12 years ago, right after you mocked me for getting my business degree from the University of Georgia instead of Harvard." "That's impossible," Isabel whispered. "Sterling is worth $9,600,000,000 as of this morning's valuation," I finished for her, "though it may rise once today's news finishes making the rounds." My phone buzzed again, more headlines lighting up the screen. "Local assistant revealed as billionaire developer controlling southern real estate market. Sterling Holdings blocks Beaumont deal in surprise move." Daniel's face drained of color. "You knew," he said slowly. "You knew I was negotiating to buy properties you already owned." "Of course." I let my smile widen. "I've known about every deal you've chased. It's hard to compete when you don't even realize your rival's been in the room all along." The room went silent. Excellent camouflage, wouldn't you say? I pulled up Sterling's property portfolio on my phone. "While you flaunted your wealth, I quietly built an empire. Every time you mocked my modest life, I bought another building, another company, another piece of the skyline." "Why keep it a secret?" my mother demanded, her tone sharp. "Because underestimation is a powerful business tool, and frankly it was entertaining. Do you know how many negotiations I won because people thought I was powerless?" Daniel's hand shook as he grabbed his phone. "We can't lose the deal. Our investors—" "Already know," I interrupted. Beaumont Real Estate's stock dropped 14% in after-house trading, The market doesn't take kindly to finding out you've been outmaneuvered by your so-called underachieving sister. I took another sip of champagne, letting the silence stretch. For years, they'd looked down on me. Tonight, they were looking up. Isabel sank into the cream leather sofa, her designer heels slipping off as she stared at me. All those meetings at Sterling Holdings? When I was trying to secure space for my new surgical clinic, she murmured. Were you speaking with my actual assistant? I asked. Yes. Thought so. I watched every meeting from my private elevator. And, by the way, you were unnecessarily rude to her. That's why your lease application was denied. You can't do this, my father said, stepping forward. We're family. Family? I unlocked my phone and tapped a file. The sound of last year's Christmas dinner filled the room. She's just an office worker. No ambition. Embarrassment to the Beaumont name. Funny thing about family, I said, stopping the playback. They rarely notice what's right in front of them when they're too busy looking down their noses. My phone buzzed, Bloomberg requesting an interview, Forbes offering a cover story, 2 Wall Street analysts wanting meetings. Your father's right, my mother tried again. Families should stick together, now that we know about your success. Now that I'm worth acknowledging, I cut her off. Now that the daughter you dismissed as worthless turns out to be worth billions? We can work together, Daniel said quickly. Beaumont Real Estate and Sterling Holdings. Already work together, I interrupted, smiling. Sterling owns the building your headquarters sits in, and most of your regional offices. Speaking of which, I tapped my phone. Your next rent review is? Oh, look at that. Next month. Daniel's face lost all color. In fact, I continued scrolling, Sterling also owns properties leased by Isabel's clinics, Matthew's tech campuses, and 3 of your law firm's satellite offices, Mother. Interesting coincidence, isn't it? Yeah, our landlord, Isabel whispered. Among other things, I replied. Sterling also holds controlling interests in several of your suppliers, service providers, and your banks. The silence was heavy enough to hear the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. So you see, I said, lifting my champagne, I never needed to prove myself to the Beaumont family. I just needed to own you. And now, I do. My father swallowed hard. What do you want? One? I laughed softly, the sound echoing in the stillness. Oh, Father, I already have it. If you want to see exactly how Camille turns this family reckoning into her greatest power play yet, make sure you subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. I want you all to wake up every morning knowing that the daughter you dismissed controls your destiny, I said calmly, that every rent check you write, every contract you sign, every deal you close, chances are, you're doing it with a company I own. My phone buzzed one last time. A photo from my real assistant, the Sterling Holdings logo, being mounted on what used to be the Beaumont Tower. Now, if you'll excuse me, I said, turning toward the door, I have interviews to give about how I built a billion-dollar empire while my family was too busy mocking my so-called job. Camille, wait, Isabel called out. I turned back. Oh, and Isabel, about your mansion. You might want to check who owns your mortgage. Sterling acquired your bank last week. As I walked out, I heard Daniel's phone ring, probably his investors demanding answers. My mother clutched her pearls. My father stood frozen, and I slid into my waiting Rolls-Royce. Sometimes the best revenge isn't announcing your success. It's letting people discover just how badly they underestimated you. The morning after my revelation, Savannah's business circles were in chaos. Sterling Holdings stock climbed, while Beaumont Real Estate tanked. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I left the gala. I sat in my real office, the entire top floor of Sterling Tower, watching the sunrise spill over the city I quietly came to own. Sarah, my actual assistant, walked in carrying a stack of newspapers. You might enjoy these, she said, laying them out. Hidden Billionaire, the Camille Beaumont story. Lee's Secrets and Empire shocks Savannah's elite. From mock to mogul, the stealth power behind the skyline. And these just arrived, she added, handing me a pile of messages. Isabel, please call. Need to discuss mortgage. Daniel, our investors are panicking. Meeting ASAP. Mother, darling, breakfast? Let's clear the air. Father, family emergency meeting, your presence required. Mark them all as read, I told Sarah. And the Beaumont Tower transformation? I asked. She pulled up the security feed. Workers were stripping every trace of the Beaumont name from the facade, replacing it with Sterling's logo. In the lobby, Daniel was arguing with security, my security. Let him up? Sarah asked. No, I said, leaning back in my chair. Not today. I smiled, watching Daniel's frustrated hand gestures on the security feed. Let him feel what it's like to be shut out. Just as he had me escorted out of Beaumont Real Estate's offices 5 years ago. My phone rang, Isabel's law firm flashing on the caller ID. No doubt realizing that their office lease, building mortgage, and key client contracts all ran through Sterling Holdings subsidiaries. Ms. Beaumont, Sarah said from the doorway, CNN is here for your interview. Perfect timing. I stood, smoothing the lapels of my deep emerald suit. No more modest navy pantsuits for camouflage. Let's show the world what a mere assistant can accomplish. The interviewer sat up in my office, the floor-to-ceiling windows framing Savannah's historic skyline, one increasingly dotted with Sterling-owned properties. Miss Beaumont, she began, your revelation has stunned the Southern business world. How did you build such an empire in secret? It's amazing what people don't see when they've already decided you're not worth watching, I replied. My family's dismissal of my career turned out to be my greatest advantage. While they flaunted their modest successes, I quietly bought the buildings they worked in. She glanced at her notes. Sterling now controls roughly 38% of Savannah's prime commercial real estate? 42% as of this morning, I corrected. We just closed on the Henderson portfolio, another property my brother Daniel was pursuing, actually. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. Daniel, stock down another 10%. Your family must be reeling, the interviewer pressed. How have they reacted? They're adjusting to the new reality, I said with a polite smile. The reality that the sister they dismissed now owns their offices, holds their mortgages, and controls their business destinies. The front desk called. Isabel had arrived, demanding to discuss her clinic leases. Miss Beaumont, Sarah interjected smoothly, your 10 a.m. acquisition meeting is ready. I turned back to the interviewer. Would you like to see how a mere assistant conducts business? Lawyers, bankers, and analysts filed in. On the video screen, Daniel's face appeared, flanked by his board of directors. Thank you for joining us, I began. Let's discuss Sterling Holdings' tender offer for Beaumont Real Estate. Daniel's eyes widened. Tender offer? Yes, I said, my smile widening. We're offering to acquire Beaumont Real Estate at a generous 30% below market value given your recent difficulties. You can't do this, he snapped. Actually, I can, I replied. Sterling already holds 17% of your shares through various subsidiaries you never noticed. Your plummeting stock price has triggered loan covenants with banks that coincidentally, Sterling Holdings also owns, I said, pausing just long enough for the weight of my words to land. You need capital immediately, or you default. Daniel's jaw tightened. I'm offering a solution, I continued. The CNN interviewer sat silent, eyes wide, as I calmly dismantled my brother's company in front of its board. This is corporate terrorism, Daniel sputtered. No, I corrected, leaning forward. This is business. The business you claimed I'd never understand. The success you said I'd never achieve. I turned my attention to his board members. You have 1 hour to accept my offer before I call your loans. The video screen erupted into heated arguments. My phone buzzed again. Security reporting that Isabel had now joined my parents in the lobby. Sarah, I said without looking up, please inform my family that I'm busy conducting business. If they'd like to speak with me, they can make appointments through proper channels. Like we had to, she replied with a faint smile. Exactly. I turned back to the cameras. Now, shall we discuss how a so-called built the South's largest commercial real estate empire while her family wasn't paying attention? Sometimes the best revenge isn't just succeeding. It's succeeding so spectacularly that your doubters become your tenants. Their mockery becomes your motivation, and their empire becomes just another acquisition in your portfolio. By sunset, Savannah's business landscape had shifted. Beaumont Real Estate's board had accepted Sterling's tender offer. My family remained stranded in my lobby, while my net worth swelled by another $1 billion thanks to the market's reaction. Final tallies for the day, Sarah said, entering with her tablet. Sterling stock up 62%, 3 major acquisitions closed, and 19 interview requests from national outlets. I glanced at the electronic ticker wrapping around Sterling Tower. Sterling Holdings acquires Beaumont Real Estate. Hidden billionaire expands Southern Empire. Camille Beaumont. Savannah's new power broker. And my family? I asked, though the security feed showed them still huddled near the reception desk after 8 hours. Your father's had 2 calls with his crisis team. Daniel's in meetings with his soon-to-be former board. Isabel is scrambling for emergency financing, and your mother, Sarah smirked, wants to know if you'll attend the annual charity gala next month. Apparently they'd like to honor you as Businesswoman of the Year. I smiled, remembering every dinner where they'd questioned my choices. How convenient, I laughed. Last year you didn't even invite me to the gala because my career wasn't significant enough to mention. My phone buzzed, message from Daniel. You've made your point, let's talk. Should I let them up? Sarah asked, glancing at the security feed. I studied the image. My family looked drained, their perfect hair and tailored clothes wilting after hours in the lobby. Put them in conference room B, let them wait another hour. While they sat in that glass box, I worked. Closed on 2 more commercial properties, signed 3 major development contracts, approved lease terminations for companies that had backed Beaumont Real Estate's failed attempts to compete with Sterling Holdings. Only when the sun began dipping low over the Savannah River did I decide to face them. They looked exactly as I'd pictured, angry, rumpled, and, for the first time, uncertain. 8 hours, my father said, standing as I entered. You made us wait 8 hours. I checked my watch. I made you wait 10 years. The 8 hours were just a bonus. We're family, Isabel snapped. I tapped my tablet, and the wall screen lit up. Years of footage, transcripts and quotes, their mockery, their sabotage, their dismissal. We were wrong, Isabel whispered. Yes, I said, sliding into the head seat they used to claim. And now you need me? Loans, deals, leases. I laid it out plainly. Isabel's clinics, Matthew's tech hubs, Daniel's flagship properties. Every one of them sat in buildings I owned. For 10 years, I built this empire while you laughed, I said, swiping to the latest headline. Sterling Holdings acquires Beaumont Real Estate. Here's the deal. Sterling buys your remaining businesses cheap. You work under my leadership or you lose everything. And if we refuse? My father asked. I smiled. Good luck finding space in Savannah that I don't control. Sarah's phone pinged. Forbes cover confirmed. Savannah's Shadow Queen, the rise of Camille Beaumont. You have until tomorrow, I said, standing. Camille, we're proud of you now, my mother called after me. That's the problem, I said without turning back. You're 10 years too late. I returned to my office. The city lights shimmered in the windows. Each tower, each deal, each victory, mine. If you've been underestimated, dismissed, or told you'd never amount to anything, then you know exactly how I felt for a decade. My story isn't just about revenge. It's about building quietly, strategically, until the day your work speaks so loudly no one can ignore you. I want to hear your thoughts. What would you say to the people who once doubted you? Leave me a comment below, and if you believe in turning setbacks into power moves, subscribe to follow the rest of my journey. Remember, the best response to doubt is undeniable success.